as we have evolved from generation to generation, and I think there are a lot of expectations from a fundamental city, right? And the moment we start tagging it as a smart city, the expectations of the common citizen is just going to go up in terms of what they can expect. Just like what Purushottam talked about, whether it's a transportation network, it's a uh, water supply and those kind of things. But at the end of it, essentially, when the expectations go up, I think what really matters and what is going to be significantly important between the citizen and the providers of the services is going to be trust. And I will take the recent what we have done in terms of wave of demonetization, and I'll talk about in terms of trust and how it also links to the smart city concept itself. So as you look at demonetization and as you look at the long lines in ATMs and long lines in banks and all things, ATM, which was essentially a trusted network so far, the expectation was essentially if I go to an ATM, I put my card, I basically get money, right? Today, if you take an average citizen, I'm not sure how many of them are ready to go back to those ATMs because for 2 months they've been brainwashed that out of order, machine not working, and those kind of things. So now let's take the same thing in terms of related services from a smart city perspective. When you start elevating the expectation of people that the bus will come on time, when you turn on the tap, you will get water. When you have electricity, you will get all of the variety of services. Then you take it into safety and all things. The expectation that they are going to be looking at is going to be very, very high. And when you look at security, you're looking at confidentiality, you're looking at integrity, you're looking at availability, and then you're looking at privacy of information. First and foremost, while we look at end citizen and information about them getting collected, how are we going to manage and maintain privacy of that particular information? One may argue that a lot of this is critical information, you're not collecting any PII and all things, but essentially that needs to build the element of trust. Second is essentially the availability. While we talk of IoT, while we talk of all of these particular devices, the biggest challenge that is really facing the IoT industry today is the end sensor and the power in the end sensor. So I think that is essentially the biggest challenge that the IoT manufacturers are facing. One is the cost, how to essentially make it more economically viable. Second is how to essentially maintain the power. Third is essentially how do you embed security into every layer in terms of, as some of the, even Mr. Tyagi said, how do you embed security right from a sensor level all the way to the topmost services or the data layer, and how do you basically do that? And the availability of the sensor itself is significantly important because if there is a reliance on the sensor providing critical information, and that essentially is going to lead into the service level and the services. So I think the availability of that particular sensor at that point is very critical. Integrity of that information. Today we are building smart cities across the country, but however, to what Purushottam said, do we have a common services framework? Because all these cities eventually have to talk to each other. All these cities, the networks, and the various services that we're providing should essentially be able to talk to each other in a very secure fashion, and also the integrity of the data flow and information across these has to basically be together. And then the last area, which is essentially obviously the confidentiality, how are they basically managed there? And as you look at this, I think you have today, if you in the smart cities, you have the government, you have the service providers who are or the agencies which are essentially providing the services. You have a variety of organizations like us and others who are working with them on creating RFPs, creating project plans, creating business cases. Then you have the technology providers who can be right from the actual services layer all the way to the IoT layer. But I believe what really is very important is the common framework that Purushottam talked about, the standards that we set for the smart city, which has to be consistent, and it is not standards only in the security layer, standards in terms of the infrastructure, standards in terms of the communication layer, standards in terms of how we are basically doing that, and how do you really manage and embed all of those particular aspects. So I think it's a great journey that we embarked on, but I think unless we really do it smart, And if we start actually building these particular cities just as one-off processes, I don't think we'll really get there. But I think we need to think smart, pull ourselves back, think about as to futuristic, what is going to be the expectation of the city across, whether it's a citizen, whether it's a government, whether it's a service provider, and then figure out as to how we basically structure these particular services as we move forward.